Welcome into another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. As promised, it is another Farabaugh Friday on Steelers Afternoon Drive. It's been a couple weeks, but he's back. Nick Farabaugh, what's going on?
Yes, Smitty, I am back. Giving Alan a little bit of a break here today. During the bye week. So, it's going to be a little weird not watching football this week with the Steelers in it, I guess.
Yeah.
Watching a lot more general football, though. I think that's always cool. And I'm looking forward to that. Just kind of looking around the league, seeing what's, going on for the games I haven't been able to catch. But I'm here, man. It's another Fairball Friday. I mean, come on. Come on.
The first thing I want to get into, we are still a couple weeks away from this, but with it being the bye week, I feel like it's a good point with where the team is at. You can kind of reset, see where you are as a team, see where you're good, see where you're deficient. And while you can look internally at those things, maybe you can take a look externally as well with the trade deadline looming a couple weeks from now, specifically as it relates to the Steelers. We can talk about individual players, I guess, too. But the first thing I want to ask is just like a position group. Like, if you were looking at this roster right now, if the Steelers were to add somewhere, where do you think it would be at?
Secondary. I think that's the obvious answer. They need someone, I think, in the secondary. Safety or corner. I think either could work. Corner's pretty obvious, I think, to me. They've just struggled to cover anybody, really. I mean, the Ravens game, I know that they held them to 10 points, but man, we would be talking about another terrible performance from the secondary had they caught all those footballs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Sure. Yeah.
Sullivan, Peterson, Wallace have not been good. JPJ might be part of the answer, but even if he is, do you trust Levi Wallace? Do you trust Patrick Peterson? Do you trust Shannon Sullivan? Do you trust Desmond King? I don't know how much they trust Desmond King. And then at safety, I just don't feel like they've gotten starting level play from Keanu Neal and Devontae Casey. Um, haven't tackled well, haven't really added much on the back end. Minka has been kind of compensating for a lot of things in the secondary. They've tried to play him up a lot to help with the run defense because he's awesome in that area, but it's been a tough slog, I think. And so I think they need someone. I think the most likely position is safety. And the reason I say that
Mm.
is if you don't find corners out on the market very easily. And the corners that are going to be out on the market, if you look at it, Jalen Johnson's been a name that's been thrown out, but that's going to cost them a day two pick.
Yeah.
Tan's going to cost them multiple firsts if that happens. Although every Broncos reporter that I have seen has said even if they do a fire sale, Sertan's the one untouchable. There's just
Which
not a
makes
lot of
sense.
corners that are out
Yeah.
there. Certainly not corners that obviously will be upgrades. I think that's the big thing. If you're trading a sixth for a corner, well, is he really much better than anyone they have? I think safety is going to be easier because I'm already looking at the position groups, and I'm saying safety's got like a lot of names that could be in there. You look at some veterans that maybe aren't playing, like a Jeremy Chin and in Carolina was
Ooh.
thrown out today. Xavier McKinney, if you want two younger guys there, but there are veterans, even in Denver, for example. If they really want to go short term option, he's 35 years old, but Kareem Jackson would
Mm-hmm.
definitely be an upgrade for them. I don't know if they're going to make a trade like that. I feel like they would have to make a trade that has benefits to the future of the team as well. Someone that they can bring back and can make multi-year contributions. Like a Chin would be able to do that. McKinney would be able to do that. They're both going into their free agency years, but you feel like you could maybe bring them back. I've seen people even lofting as high as like Justin Simmons, who I think is definitely a good name to get moved. I just don't think you can spend that much money at the safety position because he's got a
Mm-hmm.
heavy contract along with Minka Fitzpatrick. So um, I just think safety is easy. And there's a ton of other veteran names I didn't even name that are kind of quality backups that can give you, starting level play or quality starting level play. The Steelers just don't have good safety play right now, and it's hurting them a lot. So I feel like that's going to be a cheaper cost where you can give up a late day three, you got a starter guy, plug him in, and kind of look at what you do there. So DB is definitely the likeliest one, and then I think if they take a swing, a real home run swing, I think they'll look for corner. I think that's where they'll go.
Mm. Okay. I mean, I would drop that Justin Simmons one in the same bucket as like the Buda Baker talk that we were having before the season started when it looked like he was going to get moved at that point. Just for them to tie up that much money into the safety position is kind of hard to see. But you threw out some good names there. I'm a huge fan of Jeremy Chin's game, so I personally would love that one. Corner wise, Jalen Johnson. Recently thrown out by a couple people as well. I get my question with that one would be the fit because they're talking about it not necessarily being a great fit there with what the Steelers are trying to do defensively here, the scheme that they're running. Do you think it would be a good fit here?
I think it has the potential to be. Um, I do. Listen, Jalen Johnson's interesting because he is a fascinating corner that can do a little bit of everything, but is probably better, despite not having elite length. He's pretty good at press coverage, like he can walk up, which I think the Steelers are trying to kind of do right now. They're trying to build a group that can bring length. That's why they drafted
Yeah.
Trace Porter.
Hmm.
I just don't think that they have that right now, right? It's a
Right.
very odd like, that's the big thing about this corner room is, like, it's a really odd fit. Like, Joey Porter Jr. is
Hmm.
completely different from Patrick Peterson and Levi Wallace, and so, on one side, you'll have Joey walked up and press, and on the other, you'll have Pat Pete playing 10 yards off man. Like, it's a very
Yep.
odd conglomeration, and so the coverages have to be kinda molded to that. So it's different. I think Johnson though can play up. I think he can play off. I think he can play in zone. I think he can do a lot of good things there. So I think he would be a nice fit. I'd like the idea of bringing him on because he's not an elite player, but he's a rock solid player that you know what you're going to get. Like very similar to
Hmm.
what to me what you would get out of like a Steven Nelson back when he was with the Steelers, which was
Yeah.
consistent corner to play the entire year, right? He might not be able to go with like the top elite guys. He's not gonna, hawk Devontae Adams. Like that's not gonna be something you're gonna be able to do. He's not a legit super one, but man, he's a very solid two. So, and he's young. I mean, he would be a very easy plug and play, and he would fit into your future plans very easily. So I like that for them, but I think Chicago would rightfully want a day two pick for him. So are you willing to part with the day two pick? I think that's the question. To get him, if you're willing to part with that day two pick, you have to sign him because he needs a new
Yeah. Oh,
contract.
yeah. Yeah.
So that's another big contract on defense at that point. And do you want another big contract on defense? I know that's been that certainly is part of the debate with when you look at the Steelers roster construction. They spend so much
Hmm.
money on defense. Between Highsmith, Cam, Watt, a lot of the guys are just free agents on the defense, right? The whole inside linebacking group outside of Mark Robinson are free agents. Basically, the whole they didn't draft any of the safety room. The whole safety room are free agents or trades.
Right.
Nick Patrick,
Ogunjobi.
yeah, Ogunjobi's a
Yeah.
free agent. The whole corner room basically is too outside of Joey and Pierre. So all of these guys are outside additions. The offense, meanwhile, is very homegrown. And so maybe you want to bring in a receiver this offseason, or you want to bring in a center or someone like that. So I do think another investment in corner is a little tougher to sell, which again is why I think safety makes a lot of sense because even if you want to keep that safety, is it going to cost that much to keep that safety? Probably not. And there's other names I didn't even mention, like Jalen Hawkins with the Falcons. He's now back up
Hmm.
because Jesse Bates is now there. If you want to go for a cheaper corner option, that's a young guy with some upside. I was telling people this. I would give a call to the Buffalo Bills about Kyer Elam. What what's
Yeah.
he doing up there? Like he's not
Right.
doing anything. And he's like the perfect type of corner to fit in with this lengthy type build that you want. So I might give a call to Buffalo, see what they want for Kyer Elam. I know he's still a very young player, so maybe you can mold something there. Hasn't really found his way onto the field there, but maybe you can find something there. But safety I keep coming back to safety. It just makes so
Yeah.
much sense to me as a player um, to go out and get. It really does.
Which I think makes sense. We've talked about it on here. I've talked about it on Around the 412 with Tyler. Like, you're not seeing the splash plays from Minka yet, and it's because he's compensating for, other people's jobs. He's having to do different things, and not be able to roam around the field and keep quarterbacks guessing into where he is on the field and making those splash plays. So right now, you're not getting the best out of Minka Fitzpatrick because of what you're getting with the rest of that secondary. So, if they are able to upgrade somewhere else in the secondary, you almost feel like you're making two acquisitions, because if you can get better play somewhere else, then you would be getting better play from Minka Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, and listen, they kind of made their bet already with the secondary. It's not going to be a good secondary this year to
Yeah.
me. I think their ceiling is going to be an average secondary, but they probably should make a move there. It just doesn't look like, even if Joey Porter Jr. plays well and Desmond King comes in and plays well, okay, you're still the safety position beside Minka Fitzpatrick. Still, you aren't getting good play from, and that other corner spot is still a question. Even with Levi and Pat Pete kind of probably flipping in, and you're probably going to get more Pat Pete in the slot. It seems now with Joey's uptick. We'll see how that goes, but
Yeah.
it's just there's just a lot of issues in the secondary. It's not something you can just innately fix. I feel like in this season, I think you're going to have weaknesses back there, but you can sure make it better. And going out and getting one of those safeties to me makes a lot of sense because, again, not an expensive position, and probably there are going to be teams looking to move on. I think Jeremy Chin would be an awesome addition. Young guy, um, athletic, splash play, could easily fit into the Terrell Edmonds role.
I, dude, you're talking my language right now. Jeremy Chin's one of my favorite non-Steelers. So, um, let's flip the script then to the other side of the football offensively. If there is, I don't want to say a group that they could add to, but also let's talk about maybe that they could deal from their own team. The Athletic today putting out an article, one player that could be traded from each team. I feel like we knew this name was coming. Mason Rudolph, QB3 in Pittsburgh. You were on here for an episode a while ago when his name was thrown out there with all the turmoil going on in New England, mentioned as an option potentially as a trade partner there. But yeah, Mason Rudolph. Any chance in your mind that Mason Rudolph is not on this team's roster if the deadline and he's moved?
Probably not. He's going to be on the team. Listen, and it's not because the Steelers don't want to trade him. It's just I don't think anyone has offered anything of substance for him. Now, if they get a fifth round pick for him, I mean, he's gone. I mean, that's the realistic thing. But there's not going to be a team that needs that unless something catastrophic occurs. And I mean, we're talking Daniel Jones is knocked out for the year. Tyrod gets hurt too, and they just need someone to play or something in New York or something like that. But
Hmm.
I can't see it happening. Maybe it's going to take a team to overpay. Really, this team doesn't have a lot of guys you would want to deal. I think that's the biggest thing. They're a young ascending team. It's not like they need to move off anybody via the trade market. They can release them this offseason if they want to. They don't have a lot of depth to make those trades. I feel like they made most of those trades already. The Kevin Dotson deal, Kendrick Green, things like that. I feel like they made those moves already. So I'm not seeing a lot of internal movement that they could make unless they're going to get a bigger fish and need to move a guy to make that work. And what
Yeah,
I'm
like
talking
what
about that
about?
is
Go ahead.
like what I'm talking about with that is like, remember the Jonathan Taylor deals that were thrown around? Like, okay, you send
Hmm.
Najee back with them for that. Like, unless they go for like something like that, which I don't think they will. I don't think they're in a spot to do that. That's the only way I really see a player going back.
I was gonna say now, not in the same deal, but if they were to do separate ones, say you do bring in a corner like a Jalen Johnson or something like that. What about if in a separate deal, then like they move Levi Wallace somewhere else to clear a spot, give him an opportunity to go somewhere else and play? Just say, okay, maybe it wasn't the best fit for the scheme here. Send him somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean that could be something that works. If they think about that. But I think you're going to really have to find a team that is desperately needing corners. Because I think the Steelers right now have certainly a bottom three corner room based on play. So it's going to be hard. But if the team needs depth, I mean, sure.
Oh,
I
we've
don't know.
seen it work with Levi in Buffalo before. We can get Kyrie
Yeah,
Elam from Buffalo.
that would be an
Yeah.
interesting player for player trade. I'm not going to lie. I mean, Kyrie Elam was drafted to replace Levi Wallace, which is
Yeah.
even funnier. Which that just hasn't happened. But yeah, I mean that could work maybe for a late day three. But you might just want to keep Levi. And
Yeah, I'm
it,
not like a
and
totally
like
out
I
on
think
Levi.
that's possible, but I just don't see them moving a player. I think that they could get a player. If you're
Mhm.
talking about offensively, where they could add, probably receiver would make sense. Just a lot of receivers on the market. Nico Hardman, Jerry
Yeah,
Judy, um, Kendrick Bourne, like a lot of different names being
Hunter
thrown around.
Renfro,
Yeah,
maybe?
Hunter Renfro. I don't know. Now that Deontay's back, I feel like that's also not probably not going to happen. But maybe it does if they think that they can get a piece for the future there and someone that can help them out. Um, I know that they need a center and they could use a tackle and they could use different pieces on the offensive line, but no one's trading their starting center in season. No
Yeah,
one's trading their
right.
starting center. So I mean, yeah, sure, you can try and shop around for one, but no one's doing that.
Mhm. Yeah. Actually, the center thing is a good point here. It's a great segue because we can get into some of the questions we got from X now. Still got to get used to saying that instead of Twitter. Um, But John says Mason Cole has really struggled this season. Do you consider trying to put James Daniels at center when he returns? I think this is really interesting because Brandon Thorne, who I have a ton of respect for, I think he's kind of like the guy for trench play, at least in my opinion, my go-to. He has stated, all the people at PFF also believe this. James Daniels' best position in the NFL has been center. He also has experience there going back to college. He hasn't gotten a ton of reps there recently, though. So, what would that look like if all of a sudden he tried to play center again? I don't know, but what is your thought on that?
He hasn't played a single snap at center since he signed here. Like
Right.
I don't know what it would look like because I don't feel like he's played there for 2, 3 years. Like it's been a while. And
Hmm.
I know that's his native position, like that's his natural spot. He came into the league playing center and then Chicago moved him to guard. But I don't know what it looks like to throw him into the fire playing at center. I know that a lot of people have said they would come out of the bye with him there. Guys, would you really want him facing Aaron Donald? Like right off the bat, off a groin injury too, by the way. Like
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. I like James Daniels at center. I thought the tape was good at center. I is that the same James Daniels I'd get now? I feel like people are overselling that. The the rust factor that it would have. And I don't know if he's as comfortable at center now that is as comfortable as he is at right guard. He might just be more comfortable at right guard now. So I really like Chukwueze Okorafor was a left tackle coming out of college, but like he's probably more comfortable at right tackle at this point. He's played right tackle his whole career, basically.
Hmm.
So like that happens sometimes where you might not play your native position at the offensive line, which I think is hugely important, and I would try and play those guys there. I think it's a big part of why Kendrick Green didn't work out here in Pittsburgh. They didn't play him at his natural guard spot, which is left guard, and he played his best football probably of his career in Houston for those games before he unfortunately had that season-ending injury. But Daniels at center probably isn't going to happen just because they haven't played him there. I don't know if they view him there. I think that they would have to have a very bad scenario where you wipe out all the center capable guys and then he has to go in. I feel like if they aren't happy with Mason Cole's play, what will happen is Nate Herbig will play at center, and you will
Yeah.
have Daniels at guard. I think that's far likelier.
Hmm.
If they listen, but the issue is, I think, is that Cole is one of their guys. Like he's a leader on that O line. Like they trust this guy.
Hmm.
Kenny Pickett loves him. So I just I don't know. I agree that Mason Cole's not played good football at all, and he's killing them a lot in that run game and getting beat in the pass game. But I don't see them making that move. I probably would make the move putting in Herbig, but Daniels at center, I think, has a lot of thorns. People would maybe not want to explore right away. I'll say that.
Well, let me ask you this then. This wasn't part of the question, but it just popped in my mind now. Have they done a disservice, or was it a misstep by the Steelers to not at least give him reps there, kind of throughout his 2 years here, in some capacity, so that like if this situation arose where they weren't getting good center play, he could be ready to move back to that spot.
Yeah, I would have played him there a little bit. Um, Listen, he is you could not have watched his tape at center and not have thought that there was something there. I certainly would have given him shots there. But the Steelers have a very odd philosophy with their offensive line where they value that versatility so much, but then make these weird decisions like that where he doesn't
Hmm.
play much at center. Um, like when we were talking about the center options, right? He didn't take a single snap the entire summer. Like if he was an option at center, he would have taken snaps to me. Um, Same with Isaac Sayamalo. I know he's played at center before, but like it takes time. So maybe later in the year, if they really wanted to, start getting him in practice and start working him there, but he has not played a snap at center in practice for 2 years at this point. Like
Right.
he has never done it, not in a single practice in Pittsburgh. I think that is significant. And maybe it's just like riding a bike where he just picks it up like that and can go right away. But listen,
Yeah.
man, they're facing Aaron Donald a week,
Yeah.
a week and a half. Like that center's got to be ready to go. And if you're going to make it switch at center, I would just throw Nate Herbig.
Yeah. Tyler, part of his question was about center as well, so I hope that kind of covered what he was to say because he said what to do at center. I mean, I think we've covered enough there in terms of what they could do, but probably won't do. He also mentioned though Breiden Fehoko and Desmond King as things to touch on. Um, Breiden Fehoko is an interesting one because it kind of felt like he was already going to be like matchup specific, maybe not like a guy that gets a helmet every game, but we thought at this point we'd probably see him play a little bit. He hasn't played a single defensive snap. I thought there were some matchups in there that would have made sense for him to actually get some reps at nose tackle, but we just haven't seen it. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. When your run defense is struggling, the great idea would be to play the run plug and nose tackle. Like give him a shot.
Yeah.
Doesn't even need to play a ton, just 10 snaps. Like let's see what he can do. They didn't even give him a shot when he was active. I don't think he played a single snap against Baltimore. And that's like a team he's built to play against, right? Vegas,
Hmm.
team he's built to play against. Like these last 3 games from Vegas through Baltimore, probably should have been playing. Like, I think that they would have been better against the Texans against the run had he played. Now, I think a lot of their run defense issues are the perimeter. I really do. And people are going to be like, "Oh, that's the edge rushers." No, it's the corners. It's the corners, man. Do you remember how the Texans beat them outside the tackles, throwing those pitch plays, making the receivers block? Man, these corners for the Steelers haven't shown a single bit of interest in run defense. It's been a terrible tackling unit. The linebackers at times have had struggles, but I feel like the linebacker play has actually been fine. I feel like whenever they've faced teams that run up the middle, run those gap schemes, they've done fine. Like they let up one big run against the Ravens with Lamar, and that was really most of the yardage against them on the ground. I thought they did a pretty
Hmm.
good job otherwise of shutting down the Ravens. Um, so I look at it and say, man, uh, that needs to be fixed, the secondary tackling, but also give Fehoko a shot. I don't know. He can influence those perimeter plays, blow them up a little bit, occupy space, allow those linebackers to scrape over the top and help to the perimeter. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me why Breiden Fehoko hasn't played. I don't know. It's odd. He should be playing.
Yeah, I agree. And kind of that same conversation, Desmond King logging just one defensive snap against the Ravens. And you could see that there was some miscommunication for sure on the back end. Justice Hill ends up scoring a rushing touchdown on the one defensive snap that Desmond King did play against the Ravens. Now you got a bye week to, maybe even continue to get him up to speed, help him grow into a bigger role within this defense. Who knows? But we were just talking about run defense from the secondary, specifically these corners. He seems like that type of guy that could add and be a positive in that area. So, do you think there's any shot that it's just been in terms of him learning the playbook and getting acclimated, and he could have a bigger role post by?
I think so. Granted, he played one snap against the
Right.
Ravens, took a
Yeah.
terrible angle and allowed a touchdown. So um, that wasn't encouraging because that Justice Hill touchdown was pretty much on him because he committed too far inside and then couldn't catch up back to the perimeter. But I think he's shown enough on film in Houston and throughout his career that he's a really good run blitzer. He's a really good slot guy, and he's a good tackler. He's willing, and I just don't think they have a lot of willing guys right now that want to tackle. Minka wants to tackle, but Like Pat Pete has not wanted a single bit of that smoke all year. Levi, I feel like, has tried. She just hasn't made the tackles.
Hmm.
And then I think Sullivan has just not given him anything in terms of run defense from the slot. And then even the safeties, like Neal has had some nice plays, I feel like, but Casey hasn't had great run defense reps. It's just been tough, man. So King should get at least again 10 snaps. Let's see what he can do. Because listen, if JPJ is going to play and Pat Pete's going to be in the slot, that run defense on the perimeter is even going to be a bigger issue. Because Joey, as good as he's been, has not been a good tackler. That's not really his strength. And Pat Pete in the slot as a tackler, man, that's if he's as bad as he's been on the outside, man, we got a problem. Like for
Yeah.
that's a big issue. And so we'll see. I think King has to play though. I'm not even sure he's like a super great player. I think he's just a solid run defender whose strengths cater to what they need, right? Like that's the same thing with Fehoko. Like I'm not even like Fajoko's like a starting level nose. He's not, but he's a great run defender, and they need that. Like they need these strengths of these guys to play right now. Like it's like Art Mollett last year, where Art Mollett's not
Yeah.
that good of a slot corner. He could be toast in coverage. He wasn't great in man coverage, but he can blitz, and he's a really good run defender. They needed that, and so I think they need Desmond King to be that Art Mollett type. Even if he's not perfect in the slot, he can add a lot of run defense qualities. And then when you get them in to passing down situations, yes, you're exposing that secondary, but you're also allowing T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith opportunities.
Yep. Absolutely. So I would like to see him continue to take on more of a role. I mean, obviously, there's no real less. There's no shot of it being less of a role. Hopefully, it's more going forward. Gavin, this is the last one from X here. Why does the defense have seemingly more trouble against offenses that sit under the Kyle Shanahan umbrella? When you look at San Fran under Kyle Shanahan, as well as Bobby Slowick in Houston, as opposed to schemes as to say the Ravens, Browns, Raiders. Look at what the 49ers and Texans did to us, dropping 30 points apiece.
They run to the perimeter. That's what that Shanahan scheme is meant to do. The outside zone, the pitches, they run in space. The Raiders did not run in space. They are a gap lead team. The Browns do a lot of that wide zone stuff. The Browns got them pretty good on the ground too, if you remember, where Nick Chubb was at like 64 yards before he went out, and a lot of that was getting to the perimeter. And
Yeah.
that was an issue. And Stefanski has that McVay wide zone influence with him. So the perimeter was a big thing in that game. But the Shanahan stuff has really kind of exposed the Steelers' matchup problems and their personnel deployment issues. And what I mean by that is when they faced both the 49ers and the Texans, they were able to exploit Landon Roberts for his coverage ability,
Hmm.
right? They were able to put Cole Holcomb in tough spots where he had to make deep plays in zone coverage when he's just better as a spot zone guy. They were able to exploit the safety play and just wreck the middle of the field because the play action would freeze them. The corners aren't twitchy enough or athletic enough. Neither are the safeties, to be quite honest with you, to make plays. I think that's a big issue too. I think because when you have a team that goes to the perimeter and is trying to beat you in the middle of the field, and you're trying so hard not to get beat over the top because you don't have elite athleticism on the back end, you allow a lot of those trunk plays underneath. And that's what's happened to the Steelers is they don't trust the corners and the safeties to stop explosive plays down the field. And when they have finally relented and said, okay, you know what, we're gonna have to try and not let this stuff happen underneath us, right? We can't let these 15-yard in routes kill us all game. Well, then Devontae Adams beats you over the top. Nico Collins beats you on a deep corner, like all of these things, right? That's when the big plays came. So it was like, got to do something about it. And I think the Steelers are really having a tough time navigating what to do when your defense isn't super athletic. It's just not a super athletic defense. The front is a very athletic front.
Right.
I love the D line. They are freaks up front. I think the linebacker room is pretty athletic. I think Quan is certainly fast, and Cole Holcomb isn't like an elite athlete, but he's a solid athlete. Rob is not a great athlete, but he's great downhill. But they'll exploit Rob going sideline to sideline instead of having him come downhill and make plays. So I think that's something. I think the scheme also puts those linebackers in tough spots, but the corners, it hurts because they haven't been good in run defense. They haven't been athletic enough in coverage. And so when you beat them to the perimeter, you run to the perimeter, and then you open up everything with the pass game, which makes it harder on the linebackers, harder on the D linemen because the D linemen are trying to stop, the screen game. And more importantly, they're also getting the ball out quick. I think that's a big
Yep.
thing. Stroud,
Eliminating the pass rush. Yeah.
yeah, like Stroud had an absurd stat or something where even when he was pressured, I think, in like average on average in 2.7 seconds, which is pretty solid, all things considered. Or I think it was even lower than that. It was like maybe 2.4 seconds. The Steelers had pressures on him, and the ball would be out in 2.1 seconds. 2.1 seconds because they would chip TJ Watt, they would chip Alex Highsmith. Like people were telling me, "Oh, the D line no showed against the Texans." Watch the tape; they killed them in the past.
Yeah.
They killed them. The ball was just out. Like Highsmith had a great game. Watt was beating guys even through double teams. Benton was beating guys. Ogunjobi was beating guys. Montrevious Adams was beating guys. That O line couldn't pass protect that day. They didn't need to because CJ Stroud was able to get the ball out. They were able to confuse him with misdirection. They were able to get back behind them with the screen game, use their aggressiveness against them. And so I feel like the back end issues have leaked to the front end when they face those teams. If they can start defending the perimeter run, it'll be a lot
Mhm.
better against those teams. I think Sean McVay is going to be a great test for them in that regard.
Yeah.
Because he's, the Shanahan McVay stuff, a little different, not quite the same, but similar principles. So let's see what they can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got one more thing here. We'll grab one from YouTube before we get out of here. Speaking of this Rams matchup, that was a good segue there as well for this. Mr. Abs 369 says, wouldn't it make sense for JPJ to get a large share of reps against the Rams just based on the personnel they are going to face? Coop, Nakua, Atwell don't bode well for our CBs. Having JPJ out there seems almost like a necessity just because of the talent they have and a lot of 3 wide receiver sets.
Tough because I agree the coverage matchup is good for him. But as we just said, can he defend the perimeter run? Is he going to be
Yeah, right.
able to defend the perimeter run? Do we trust him to do that? That's going to be the question. Who's going to be able to step up and tackle on the perimeter? Who's going to be able to stop the screen game, right? The quick hitters. Because I'll tell you, I'll let you in on a secret, guys. Look at the Rams starting tackles right now. Like, look at who they are. It's not, they don't have it's not Robert Havenstein from the past. That's not the old Robert Havenstein. He's a lesser version of what he was. That left tackle to Alaric Jackson. Like,
Yeah.
folks, the Steelers have the advantage on the ends, tackle. The interior, you have Dotson, Shelton Coleman, and Steve Avila. I like Avila and Dotson. Coleman's also, I think Shelton's played also pretty solid. Coleman Shelton. He's pretty underrated, actually, but still, I think that the interior D line should have opportunities to get pass rush reps against them. So, very similar game plan potentially coming here from the Rams that the Texans had and the
Right.
49ers had. So, can Joey Porter Jr. tackle? And more importantly, how are you going to play him in press against Cooper Kupp, Puka Nakua, Tutu Atwell? Because these are different stylistic guys, right? Kupp's this big slot dude, but Nakua is this like shifty guy that is hard to get, and Tutu Atwell's like this 5'6", just absolute speed demon, and so it can be tough. He's got to play more. Absolutely has to play more. Like, I need to see him out there for at least 35 snaps to me, which will probably come around 50% of their snaps, which makes sense to me. But I also need to make sure I have my best tackling corners out there because if they run the ball on you, man, the play action's opened up. And Matt Stafford's playing at such a high level this year where, man, that
He's
run
been
game's
good. Yeah.
going. You're going to be down quick. You're going to be really, really hurting. But defenses are best up in the Sean McVay scheme when they can take away middle of the field concepts because they stop the run game. I just need to see one better safety play to do that. When they have stopped Cooper Kupp in the past, for example, they've used Minka a lot to really weaponize
Mhm.
that. But Terrell Edmonds was a big part of that too. So who's going to step up and be that second guy? Can you trust KZ to do that? Can you get good games out of those guys? I think that's going to be the big thing. JPJ has to play a lot because of the coverage matchups, but I also need to make sure he's ready for the run defense test. If he's not ready for that, he can't play like as much as you would like him to play. He could play a lot against the Ravens because the Ravens run mostly up the gut, and
Yeah,
the press stuff worked against them. But this is going to be a big test for him if he can make plays and tackle. But listen, I will also say this, and people will probably respond in the comments with this, like Patrick Peterson and Levi Wallace haven't done that anyway. So maybe it's just better to find out if the Rook can do it.
I agree. But yeah, let us know your thoughts in the comments on that. Really good stuff. Nick, tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Farabaugh. Make sure to check out more at Steelers.com. Of course, subscribe to the Steelers Now YouTube channel as well.
Yep. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, hit us in the comments, like we said. Let us know how you feel about anything that we touched on here. All that good stuff. If you're listening somewhere else, leave us a 5-star review there as well. Apple, Spotify, whatever podcast platform you were using. We are there. Like Nick said, go check out the site. Him, Derek Bell, Alan Saunders, all those guys putting out some great stuff. Follow me as Zachary Smith, PGH. We will be back on Monday after the weekend. It'll be Alan Saunders and myself back taking another afternoon drive. But we can't thank you guys enough for hopping in and taking another Steelers afternoon drive. Until next time, we'll see you.